What is up, everybody? My name's Lewis, also known as MrCameraJunkie, where I remind you to upgrade your skills before your gear. Welcome to the live stream. Thank you for stopping by and spending your time here with me, switching some things up today. I didn't do the tip of the day just to get into it to the live stream even faster and see how we go from here. So thank you for stopping by as always. And today we're going to be talking about the A6100, one of my favorite cameras. I own two different cameras, and I usually have my A6100 as my main shot, but because I'm going to be using it in demonstration and go through the settings, I have it set as my secondary shot, and I'm going to be going through it as, you know, just through the settings and in a way that you'll be able to see it best. So I think I got that taken care of. And with that being said, let me go check on the chat to see who we have here. All right, so we have Randy and Sly stopping in as always. Thank you for spending your time here. Look at Sly. We missed you on Peter's live stream, but happy to have you here. Hope you're feeling better, because we got some news that you weren't feeling too good, so we wish you the best. Okay, Randy saying, mowing the grass today, my front wheel came off. Glue it, buy a new one if I can't find it, or just another lawnmower. Decision. You know what? Having somebody cut your grass could be something that, you know, interests you. I used to cut my own lawn when I had the house, and the amount of time and effort that I would spend every like 2 weeks, you know, every 2 to 3 weeks, having to go to the gas station and get a little bit amount of fuel just so that I can use it for the lawnmower, and then separate some and mix it with the, you know, with the oil for the weed whacker, and so many different things that I was just like, it would consume my entire day, when I can pay somebody to get that done, and they would come like every month, take care of it. It was like $30 or $40, and I said, you know what, I'd rather work fixing phones to make up that money in that time instead of having to do all of that mess. It saved me the fact of having to buy another lawnmower. So it could be something that you're looking into. Look, we talk about everything here, but I appreciate it. See, even Randy saying, Sly, how are you feeling? I'd probably try to fix the wheel. I went to urgent care today, still negative for COVID. They don't seem to know what I have, only what I don't know. Only what I don't. They know what you don't have. Okay. Well, that's good. Randy saying strep throat or pneumonia. Hopefully neither, but hopefully you just end up feeling better. Okay. She says nope and nope. Apparently I'm healthy as a horse, just can't breathe. Then I would tell you, try to see if you could do some vapor therapies. Those help out a lot. That's the stuff that the nurses would always tell me to do with Aiden, because, you know, he really can't take care of that himself, or even let me know that he's having issues. So like a humidifier, I think that's something that will always help out. It's natural, usually just steam the water, maybe with a little bit of Vicks, and that would at least help you breathe. You know, it might be a little bit uncomfortable with the humidity in the room, especially if you do it like overnight, but I'll guarantee you're probably gonna get a really good night's rest, which is something that you probably haven't had in this past week. So all right, so let's get into it. Today we're going to be talking about the A6100, and the reason why I decided to talk about this and talk about it as a webcam is because I have been using the A6100 as a webcam. It was a live stream that Alicia Way had been doing this week, where he actually has purchased a set of Sony cameras. So he actually has the A61, the A64, and the A6600, but he's still using his Canon M50 Mark I to connect it with eCam to use that as his webcam. He says that he's gonna be moving over to Sony, but the reason why is because of the convenience that the M50 with eCam actually allows him to just plug it in via USB and use it as a webcam. Now, it was mentioned to him that you can do the same thing with the A6100, and that's what I'm going to demonstrate first more than anything, which is the fact that I am also using eCam to do my entire production on my live streams. It's what allows me to bring the comments up onto the screen. It allows me to do everything, transition, switch cameras, and even has interview mode. This is a full production suite. It is such an incredible program. I've been extremely happy ever since I've been using it. But one of the other key things about it is that it's what its name is all about, eCam, or like an electronic cam or a webcam. So eCam is a program that's designed and based all around the webcam utility, and that's where it originated and has blossomed into what you see before you today. But one of the main things is that it allows you to connect a variety of different cameras directly to your Mac computer and use them as your webcam without having the need to purchase what we know. I thought I left it here. Oh, here it is. A capture card, a video capture card. This is a video capture card. This is a simple one that you can find on Amazon. Okay. And this costs about $18 to $20. That's usually around the price that they go. As you can see, HDMI port there, that's where you would connect your camera. And then on the other side is the HDMI plug, the USB plug that you would put into your computer. This will convert any digital signal that you can throw into the HDMI and allows the computer to process it and allows the computer to see it as a webcam. But with eCam, like I said, there's a variety of different cameras that you can connect directly without having the need for a video capture card. Now, disclaimer, all of the cameras, whether you're connecting them directly via USB or not, or better said, if you're connecting them via USB, you're always going to get a better signal using a capture card, even if it is an inexpensive $20 Amazon capture card. So this is always the preferred method, but we're going to go through the steps to see what is the easiest way to connect the A6100 as a webcam. So let's get to it. Well, just to show you, I usually have a secondary angle, but that's what this is all about right now. As you can see, I've just gaff taped some cables and things like that just so that I don't mess up the connections while I'm doing all of these tests. But the first test that I'm going to be doing is plugging the camera directly via USB. All right. I forgot I had these computers here. Let me just move them out of the way. Okay. And right now what I'm going to be doing is I'm just going to be connecting this USB cable. Let's see if we can get it to focus. Okay. USB cable type A into my Mac Mini. Boom. There we go. All right. And right away, it goes from USB connection. Give it to me. To showing the display. As you can see me there. Inception in the camera. All right. So now that we have that here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to change the scene. All right, and there we go. And that right there completes the tutorial for the fastest way to make your A6100 into a webcam. Hands down, all you do is just plug in the USB, and eCam program does all of the rest. It's a bit shaky. I'm trying to do my best here, but that's all that you need to do. So you'd be able to put this on a tripod and right away already just start using a high quality camera as your webcam with a variety of different lenses at your disposal, including my favorite lens that I use for all of my live streams, which is my Sigma 16mm f1.4. And I'm gonna go back to that shot if it goes. There we go. All right, so right there, I'm just gonna show here that the only thing connected is the USB. I have the HDMI ready because I want to show you the difference in the camera itself and the quality that you'd be getting for it. Now, we're going to go in through the settings because there is a particular type of setting that you have to put into the camera to make sure that you get this as a feature, because just to touch it briefly, if you're using the camera in the mode where you're connecting it to your smartphone, that feature needs to be turned off completely. If not, this camera would never connect to any computer like this. Now, this is also available to be used as a webcam just like this, even if you're not using eCam as your program of choice. So let's just say you're not even using a Mac computer at all and you're in the Windows ecosystem. Whether it's Windows or Mac, you can still download a free Sony web utility program that allows this camera to still connect the same way, just like I did with eCam, via the USB cable that I just demonstrated. So the same thing can apply even if you're using a free application like OBS or Streamlabs OBS, StreamYard, any other application that isn't going to natively connect the camera via USB and recognize it as a webcam. You'll still be able to download the web utility so that the computer itself will always recognize the camera as a webcam and allow you to choose it in your favorite program, whether it be Skype, Zoom, you name it, or even YouTube like we're streaming right now. All right, I just see Coffee, Talk, and Tech saying, yo, what's up, man? How are you doing, sir? Welcome. It says Sony Edge program, I think. Sony Edge is the one that you would use to connect all of your cameras. That will allow you to use it and download your files. It's almost like a Lightroom of sort. It has Sony Viewer, which will allow you to organize and see the files that you want to download onto your computer. But you don't need to go through the Sony Imaging Edge program at all if you just want to use it as a webcam. All you would need to do is download the web utility, and it's almost like drivers for the computer. Once they're installed, like I said, you'd be able to just connect that via USB, and the computer itself will recognize it as an option to be a webcam. Now, I'm going to take it to the next step, right? Because the cool part about this is that once you connect it via HDMI, right now what we're gonna have is, it's called dirty HDMI, meaning everything that is supposed to be displayed on the back of the camera is going to be broadcast out to you guys. So for that reason, I'm gonna put the lens cap back on to create a black atmosphere so that when we go back to this camera, you'll be able to see the menus correctly. So let's check this out here. All right, and there we are. As you can see me, I'm here in the bubble on to the right hand side. This is basically what we'd be looking at in the back side of my Sony A6100. So, okay. Actually, let me not do the lens cap. That's actually a good thing. Actually, well, yeah, here we are. Should be coming through now, right? It stayed stuck on a black screen. What's going on? Okay. All right, let's take that off then. Let's see. Okay. I'm just blowing by this. I'm gonna go through the settings in a much slower pace. But right now, I just need to get to the HDMI settings. And you see this says HDMI info. We're gonna turn that off. And right there, that should have turned that off. Now we should be broadcasting, which we're not. I see it in the back of the camera. Okay. And this is why we do things live. All right, let's disconnect you. Oh, that's what was going on. Okay, that makes sense. Well, apparently it was still trying to feed through the signal that was on the USB because I kept that in. And now we're connected via HDMI. Oh, sorry if I gave you guys just some vertigo. Apologies. Okay, I'm gonna switch it around. And now this is the same exact camera, but as you can see with the HDMI cable, it's much more clear. There's a lot less latency in the signal, and the image quality is greatly improved. Now, like I said, compared to a webcam that would naturally come on like my MacBook Pro, this very small 720p display webcam is absolute garbage. That even the USB with its latency is a vast improvement, and the ability of putting a good piece of glass in front of the sensor makes all the difference in the world. So for that reason, even if it was just via USB, this is still a great webcam and webcam utility. Now, this is what I prefer. The quality that you're getting off of the HDMI is pretty much unmatched, and the fact that you can utilize this with the appropriate video capture card and get 4K 30 and 1080 60 frames a second and be able to broadcast that is what makes this unmatched. Now, let me go ahead and see if I can turn on the settings again. I'm gonna make the screen black because we got Inception here. Okay, so I'm gonna put the lens cap on. Okay. Let me see if I can do the HDMI settings. And we're gonna turn on the HDMI settings. Okay. Let's see what we have there. Okay, we're seeing the batteries at 100%. What I'm also gonna do is I'm gonna plug this in right now. So we're gonna have the HDMI, which is giving out the signal, which is what you're seeing through the settings right now. But I'm also going to plug it into my Sony wall charger. Just to show you, this is, let's see if we can see it. Yep, Sony wall socket. USB. All right, and you can see in the upper right hand corner up there, you'll see a little plug next to the battery, meaning that even though this is giving you the image for your live stream, webcam, however it is that you're using it, it's also being powered. So this now pretty much just runs indefinitely with the one battery that it comes with. So it's a pretty much all-in-one kit, and with the kit lens you'll be pretty much set to go to create content for video, photography, and live streaming, webcams, Zoom, Skype, anything that you need. That's why I really feel that the A6100 is pretty much the most versatile camera in the entry-level budget type cameras. You know, there's a lot of cameras that do this and more, including the 6400 and the 6600. All of the Sony cameras is basically, you know, Alicia was the one who said it, that if it says 4K, you know, on the body, you're pretty much set up to be able to utilize this camera as a webcam, because it means it's new enough in the body series to be able to be adapted in that way. But we're gonna go through the menus now, and I wanted to go through all of the menus and show you guys what I do. Okay, right now it's set up into video. That's why it's showing large 20 megapixels. When it's in the video format, it goes into Super 35, where it actually crops in a little bit on the top and bottom. That crop is basically removing 2 megapixels off top and bottom. This is traditionally a 24 megapixel sensor when it's 2x3, but when it's 16:9, which is the ratio that I have set up for the video mode, as you can see here. Let me see if I can move myself a little bit. Yeah, let me unlock this. I'm gonna try to put myself in a less... Okay, maybe that works a little bit so that we can see things better. Okay. I will move myself accordingly. Okay, so right there it says 20 megapixels, and that's because I'm shooting it in the Super 35 mode. Like I said, if we were shooting it the 2x3 or standard photography, you'll be utilizing the entirety of the sensor, which will give you the 24 megapixels that is displayed. Excuse me. Let me get some water. Okay, so we're back. This is the first page. This is basically just standard stuff. File format, we're saying JPEG. Right now it is JPEG because we're in the movie mode, and when you're in the movie mode, you could only select JPEG. I'm going to switch it over to manual. Let's make sure we get it. Okay, so now this is the photography mode. As you can see, a couple of things just changed from what we were just seeing. It's displayed there, but now this is how I shoot for my photos, which is RAW plus JPEG. Both of them are being captured at the same time into the camera. Extra fine quality because I want to maximize in the highest quality for my photos. 24 megapixels. 3x2, just like I was mentioning before. Okay, we're gonna go to the next one. Long exposure NR. That means long exposure noise reduction. Is it on? Yes. And then high ISO noise reduction, meaning high ISO settings being above, I believe, 6400 is when this starts getting applied. I have it set to normal because I don't mind too much noise, and I actually prefer doing noise reduction in post instead of having the camera try to manipulate the file. I just try to get as much as, you know, as much information as possible for my photos. This is something that I've talked about before, and I just want to illustrate. This naturally comes right here, which is sRGB, which is Sony red, green, blue. I use Adobe an Adobe suite to manipulate my photos for this reason on all of my cameras, whether they're Sony, whether they're Canon, Nikon, Fuji. I changed the color space to Adobe RGB so that they could all match as easily as possible, and with that it has really helped me achieve the colors that I want in my photography correctly every single time. So that's something that I do and I would recommend. Lens compensation, really haven't even touched that. As you can see, it's on auto. Okay, let's not do that. Menu. Okay, that jumped to playback. Okay, there we go. Okay, shoot mode. As you can see, this has a bunch of things that are grayed out because it's not even available for this drive mode. drive mode, single shooting. This is where you can have the ability to change from single shot to high continuous. If you go and you start scrolling side to side, as you can see, it gives you the options for the high speed burst. Now the high plus is where you get the 11 frames per second on it. I never put it up this high. I actually have it at mid. The reason why is because I've learned my lesson. You can't get a lot of photos. I use it mostly when I'm shooting like sports, action, or photography. Or children photography. I did a cake smash for a little boy who turned 1, and I put my camera on continuous high plus, and by the time I got home I had close to 1,500 images that I had to cull through, and they were all so close to each other, so the variance and the differences in the images is like I would have like 6 in a row that all looked really good, and I'm scratching myself. I'm like, oh, but this one has this hair over here and this one has this hair over there, like the subtle nuances that really didn't make a difference in the image, because that could have all been changed or manipulated in post. It was more like just pick one of those 6 great photos to edit. So for that reason, I've turned myself into shooting less and being more purposeful with my shots so that I have less to do in post-production. So these are all of the settings that you can do. Self timer, you have 2 seconds, 10 seconds, 5 seconds. This is a secondary self timer, which actually consists of shooting 3 images. So it waits 10 seconds. You can shoot 3 or 5 images, whether it's 5 seconds or 10 seconds. Look at that. It just gives you so many options. And yes, it will shoot 5 images simultaneously. For those of you who don't know what bracketing is basically doing the same thing as shooting 3 photos like in the previous option, but that option, what you're going to be doing is that it's going to be bracketing the exposure, meaning it's going to shoot for the exposure correctly, and then you could adjust the settings, but it's usually like a stop or 3 stops down that it will capture in a lower exposure, and then 3 steps above the standard exposure to give you 3 images and combine all of them into one file so that you can maximize dynamic range. So on top of that, Sony cameras are very well known for having extremely good dynamic range. That's still on a single shot. When you bracket your shots, you're tripling the amount of information that you're able to use for your images. You can bracket for exposure, but you could also bracket for white balance, and this is all available right within these settings. So let's go back to the menu. Bracketing settings, these, as you can see, I have it set up as off, but bracket order, you can set it up to see if you want it 0, negative, and then plus, or as you can see, negative, 0, and then plus, but it will start on the negative exposure. This really depends on your camera. Like you would hear most around there that people say if you're shooting Canon cameras, you're going to want to overexpose because you can bring those down in the highlights comparative to actually trying to bring up the shadows, which Canon cameras tend to have trouble with. And Sony cameras are kind of reversed. You're always going to want to underexpose shooting Sony cameras because you can bring that information back from like the darks and the lows. And actually, you know, if you clip your highlights, they tend to be a lot harder to bring those back into your photography. So if you're shooting Canon, you're going to tend to overexpose. If you're shooting Sony, you tend to underexpose. Okay, so let's go back. You know what? Let me go to see if you guys have some questions because I've just been on a roll. Man, we've only been 3 pages. Okay, this one's the memory, so this is super easy. I'm just gonna blow by this one. The memory option right here allows you to record any of the settings that you have on the camera, no matter which setting mode you have it on. So if you're in manual mode, which we're in right now, that gives me the ability to completely manipulate the camera. if I do at whatever settings that I can put here, I can set it to memory slots within the camera. Now the A6100 gives you 2 internal memory slots that will not change. Those are hard, like baked part of the camera, so you can remove the memory card, the battery over and over again. And whenever you go into the menu, like recovery, as soon as you get in there, those settings are going to be part of it. Now it also gives you 4 slots on the memory card, which is a very good advantage, because if you just tend to use one memory card on your camera, you can have 4 extra slots to completely customize your camera. Another added feature about being able to put the settings that you have on your camera into memory card slots on the memory card is, say you were going to update your camera, whichever Sony camera that may be, you can rest assured that even if you do the update and it erases your settings, you have the settings that you needed on the memory card, allowing you to put it back in and restore from those memory settings, and then readjust the ones that are fixed in camera. Okay, so now that I said that, I'm gonna get some more water and let's get to some comments. Okay. Okay, let's see where we left off. Says cool. Sly, I think, has a question. On another note, I tried setting my Canon up as a webcam. I downloaded the software and it still doesn't work. Which camera are you talking about? Because I just did reference this, Sly. That, let me move myself so that we can. So you know what? Let me go here. Boom, there we go. Okay. I did just reference this, which was, if you're using eCam, like I am, so on and so forth, I believe you should be able to connect that camera into the USB and it should work, not give you a problem at all. If you're using an HDMI, I would ask you exactly which camera. I think you're talking about the 90D. And if it's the 90D, I also believe that one has clean HDMI, so it's most likely just a setting that will be able to clear up and get you clean HDMI out of that camera. Okay, she says, I have one of those capture cards, but I've been hooking the camera directly into the computer. If you're using eCam, eCam has the software that it should recognize it, and you should be able to select it as a camera. If you're not using eCam, if you're using OBS, anything like that whatsoever, then you're going to need to use that capture card. And if you need help with it as well, just ask, because it's not hard at all. The one thing that I do recommend is that if you do pick up these video capture cards, what I'm going to show you is that they're like kind of chunky, right? As you can see, they're kind of like fat compared to the actual size of the connector. And when you put them into the back of the computer, they tend to like rub up against the other USB slots, and because of the size, could actually end up like consuming 2 USB slots instead of just the one. So I recommend, if you do pick it up with an extension, excuse me, so that you can be able to plug in the extension, and then the small thin cable will give it the right space to just plug into your USB and not give you any issues that way. Plus, the cable is gonna be a lot less stress than this heavy thing, you know, hanging on the back of your computer, which I kind of wouldn't recommend. But besides that, they work great, and I've been using these for over 6 months. Okay. I tried to clear my throat and almost ended up without a voice. Okay. So let's go back to it. Put the HDMI capture card in to show the difference between USB connection, only like you just did. I did read that correctly, but I'm gonna continue. It says, glad to catch your live stream. Thank you for stopping by, man. I appreciate you stopping by. And it's the same way. You left a comment on the channel saying like, oh, that you weren't subscribed or anything, and I'm like, that I do appreciate, and I appreciate that aspect, because we're creeping up on like 700. So we're blossoming the Camera Junkie community, the Camera Junkie crew, to 700, which is gonna happen sooner than what I think. So I'm excited about that. On top of that, because that's a possibility that could happen by next week. Next week also is going to be like, we're pretty much going to be celebrating 100 uploads on the channel, whether it's the live stream or if I actually get to complete the video that I have destined. But next week we're going to be celebrating either like 100 or 101 uploads to the channel as of right now. The goal it's still on, you understand, is for 104 pieces of content this year from December. So the 100 pieces of content include everything that, which wasn't much, but everything that I had created prior to the beginning of the year. So I'm still trying to meet my goals in that aspect, but I'm just grinding away, doing as much as possible and enjoying every aspect along the way. And it's like the saying, take the time to smell the roses, right? And that's what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to just like savor the experience, enjoy it, because these are milestones that I'm only gonna reach once with the channel, with this community, and it's just like, it's so exciting. I can't even hide my enthusiasm on it. It's just so exciting. I'm grateful, I'm humbled, and I'm excited because there's so many things that have already happened in this past week. This has been an excellent week for me, because I had mentioned just last week about the opportunity with Doc Rock, and what I've been able to just learn in this first week of just being in communication with Doc and just starting to put the pieces together to start helping him out with his channel. It's just been such an incredible blessing, and I'm super grateful for all of it. I'm just excited. It says, gotcha, yep, just like these Canons has to. Okay, Sly, see if there's a firmware update for your camera. Should help with your setup. It should. Art Carrasco says, what up, Camera Junkie crew? What's up, man? Thanks for stopping by, man. HDMI cable better than USB, plus less stuttering. Yes, but that's what I mentioned. You get a lot of stuttering from these, built-in webcams, and they look horrendous. Like, let's be real. There's no optics there. It is a pinhole camera, and they're bad. The reason why is because lenses make the majority of the difference when it comes to your image quality. So how can we prove this? Well, very simply. We all know that the bigger the lens, like the better the quality, and that's in the photography side. But even in the iPhone, like the newer cameras, to get better quality, you had to add what they're calling the camera bump, which is that little extra notch, so they can build the phones even thinner than the cameras. But if they were to build the camera that thin, as thin as their phone, they're gonna compromise on so much quality, because it's impossible for you to be that thin and stack sensor with any type of meaningful optics in front of it. So that's why even like on the iPhone, Samsungs, and everything, you have these camera bumps, because there's a minimum like size requirement, which that is what that bump is, so that you could actually just stack all of these tiny little like lenses on top of each other to optimize a still pinhole type camera. But that difference, whether it goes from 4 to 6 millimeters, whatever it is such a vast difference in the quality that you can get from that camera comparative to like the 2 to 4 millimeters that you can get at the top of a laptop screen, because they're making it as thin as the LCD and everybody wants the thinnest tops, but putting that camera on top there does not allow you but 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters at tops to build the entire camera with the lens and give you good quality. It's impossible. So for that reason, even if you are connecting via just USB on any of these cameras, whether they're the M50s or the Sony lineup, you're gonna get a much better image quality out of that than you would out of your standard webcam. Just facts. Says, good job, Lewis. Thank you. Says, yes, the resolution is much better. I told a few people that had eCam that you weren't getting the best resolution with USB. They didn't know. It happens. Yeah. All right, let's see. It says, my pup cam, I was using the Sigma 56mm f1.4, but now have the Sony G Master 16 to 55. That's the G Master series. That's just so nice. 16 to 55 f2.8 OSS APS-C. Well, that's not a G Master. If it's the APS-C one, then you got the 16 to 55. That's like a $1,200 lens, which is an incredible lens, but it's not the Master series that has the black label, and is the G series, which is just the same thing. And if, correct me if I'm wrong, if it is the 2.8, it's not OSS. That's the one thing about that lens that some people were saying, like, how can Sony release a $1,200 lens that's not optically stabilized? But I can go into a rant about OSS and not, because everybody, and I mean everybody that uses this lens, the 16 to 55 that we're talking about right here, okay? Everyone that I've heard that's used this lens says, like, it's amazing. It is the one lens that you would put on your APS-C camera and just forget about it, and that the images are super sharp. Now, Sony has super sharp lenses. That's known. Here's the thing. I like Sigma lenses. I know, not that I think, I know that Sigma lenses are very, very sharp. They're extremely great image quality. I also know that G Master and Sony G lenses, extremely sharp. My Zeiss 55, probably the sharpest lens that I have. Now, with that being said, what I think allows the extra bit of sharpness is the fact that they are not image stabilized. See, now the 55 Zeiss, no OSS. The 16 to 55, no OSS. Okay, because there gets to a point where OSS could actually be a negative or a deterrent to your camera. So for instance, if you were to be using an OSS lens, and for those of you who are maybe a bit lost, OSS is optically stabilized, or optical steady shot. In Sony's case, it'll be called vibration reduction, or VR in Nikon. Just the native built-in anti-shock, anti-vibration, however it is that your camera company decides to label it. But I go back to it. If you're actually using an optically stabilized lens of any kind, and you have it on a tripod, you might be getting blurrier images because you would need to almost shut that off, because the lens is expecting motion and is trying to counteract it at all times. And if it's not having anything to counteract because it's on a tripod, it will actually start trying to move a little bit to try to keep itself steady, as if you were hand holding it when it's on a tripod. And that's when you would want to shut that feature off, or have a lens that doesn't have that at all, so that you can get the clearest image through the lens directly onto your sensor. And I had a rant in previous live streams about this. You know, the reciprocal rule is something that's not talked about commonly, which is how you would actually get sharp images on film cameras. And I'm going back to it. Let's do it. %, of all film cameras, 100% of every film camera ever made did not have image stabilization. So how did we get sharp images from these cameras back in the day, or even till today? The reciprocal rule, shutter speed being double your focal length, so on and so forth. Once you understand these things and understand how to manipulate your camera correctly, then image stabilization is really not the best when it comes to photography. For video, it's wonders, but that's a whole different conversation. Look at that. That was just from one comment. All that from one comment. But that's an amazing lens. That lens right there, going back to it, Randall, the 16 to 55, basically it was just a toss-up. Anyone who said, hey, Sigma lenses are great, you can get the Sigma Trio, the 16, the 30, and the 55 for like $1,200, and then Sony dropped this lens and they were like, you can get all three of those lenses with comparable sharpness and quality. Sony G lens, zoom, and that lens is great in all the focal lengths. That's why I know it's a great lens. That's a great pickup. Question: do you think the new ZV-E10 will replace the A6100? I think it already has. The A6100, to my understanding, is discontinued. They discontinued another camera kind of secretly. Oh, interestingly, they discontinued officially the A7R 4. And you're thinking, what? That's like their flagship camera right under the Sony A1. And you're right. But I believe because of all of the shortages and all of like the changing of available parts, Sony is now releasing a Sony A7R A as an alpha. But I believe the alpha is not, for alpha, but for astrology. So an astrology 61 megapixel camera that is supposedly better in low light for sensitivity for doing astrophotography. And the other significant difference in this camera, the A7R 4A, is that it has a higher quality LCD screen, and it is rumored that they couldn't find they couldn't find any more of the original screens that they were using for the 4, so they kind of had to bump up the image quality on the back of it. For that, they did the whole new lineup and created this new A7R 4A astrology. So interesting stuff. And that with the ZV-E10 being delayed twice, that's pretty interesting, because it wasn't like that. It was Sony themselves that said, we're making an announcement. No, we're not. So It's not about rumor sites or anything like that. It was like I follow Sony's page itself, and it was themselves that actually took it back, and it's been weeks since then. So, well, you have black bars on top and bottom while using the 619 format. Well, if you're shooting photos, yes, but in the format that I had it was for video. So in that aspect, it will have those little bars, but you won't see that as the final product. Would I be able to do that? That'd be very interesting. Okay, because this is the difference between. Let me see if I can get a prop. I'm getting some ideas here, so give me a second. Oh, okay. Okay. I have this little piece of foam. This is going to represent the sensor that lives inside the back of digital cameras. So hypothetically, this is, and it's not to scale or to size, just using a piece of foam that I had here, okay? Okay. Let's say this is a full frame sensor. This being a full frame sensor, you have basically a general configuration of 2x3. This is how it will be placed in the back of the camera. APS-C is basically this sensor in Super 35 mode. And what was Super 35? Well, back in the day, you had film like this that would have on top and on bottom those little those little tracks that you would use for actual photography. Let me see if I can bring this. Trying to bring up a prop here, but this type of film had the little perforated holes along the sides. Those would sit along the top and bottom of this sensor, so to speak. And every time that you would take a camera like this and you would just wind it up once, you were physically moving a piece of film directly over the opening in the back of this camera that was the size of this basically piece of foam, which is the size of our regular 35mm sensors. They represent the size of film. Excuse me. Okay. Whew. Okay. So hypothetically here we have little tracks on the top and bottom. Every time that you would take this shot of film, you would slide over an equal amount of film that was the widest from side to side. When it came to shooting movies, and that was the difference, you're shooting 24 frames of photography every second, and that's what you would need at minimum to actually create a moving picture. With that being said, it got very costly if you were shooting 24 frames of this film in that size, meaning that a standard cartridge like this one particularly has 24 exposures. So the entirety of the contents of film in here was the equivalent to 1 second in movie film, because you would need all 24 shots available in that film to create 1 frame of moving picture. Hopefully you guys are following along. With that being said, they were going through film if they designed cameras to utilize the film itself in that size. So what they did is that instead of using film side to side here on cameras, that's when you see the Super 35 cameras that have the giant reels of film and they're faced vertically. their face top to bottom, because the way that they started feeding this same film was not side to side but up and down. So with hypothetically, the little tracks, what they did is they flipped it, and instead of consuming the entirety of the film like this, they were basically able to not do it directly in half, but basically cut that much off of it, leaving you with a Super 35, tracks on the side, and instead of you having a horizontal type image, you have a vertical type image, so to speak, that was placed on its side so that you can get a horizontal, and allowing you to save this much film, just about half, for every shot. That's why, you know, it says lights, camera, action, roll film, right? You're actually rolling film. The reason why we use terminology still today is like, did you get the footage? It was because you were literally purchasing the film by the foot. And that's why movie productions got extremely expensive, and if somebody were to mess up a take, you weren't just wasting people's time, you were wasting a highly precious commodity in the film itself. So to maximize the rolls or the footage that they had, they started shooting in smaller Super 35, taking the same exact 35mm film but flipping it on its side to maximize, and basically being able to get 3 frames for every 2 that they would normally shoot in this standard 35mm. Give me a thumbs up, guys, if you guys followed me on that. You understand? Because that was a bit of a rant, you know? And I think I explained it correctly, and that's what I aim to do, you know? Try to educate, bring value, because that's the difference. So put those two together, right? And you have a full frame sensor. You take this chunk off and you move it sideways, and now you're dealing with APS-C. You take another little cut off the side and off the top, and then you're dealing with a micro four thirds sensor, and those are all the differences, because those are the crops that are done in the sensor itself, which then represents to the difference of focal lengths that you would actually get when you're placing these cameras on there. That's why we call it a crop factor, that a 16mm on an APS-C acts like a full frame 24mm, because the perception of view that you're going to be getting is identical on both. Okay. Says yes, 90D does have clean HDMI. Okay, so you see, thank you for that, sir. I appreciate that. We can help Sly. I use USB extension cables for USB and Elgato USB capture card. Okay, but you're using the extension card like on the same Elgato. But yeah, that's fine. Says yes, 700. Hopefully me 600 next week. Rock out. That'll be awesome, man. Congratulations. And you're doing it, man. If you're up to 600, the best advice that I can tell you is to just continue going, because these numbers is like bookmarking. Like, I heard somebody say this, and I like that like analogy, which was like somebody bookmarking a web page that they like, you know, something that they want to visit again. But you know, there's obviously people who are much more, you know, in tune and active in the community, which I do appreciate, but the channel itself is just starting to grow, and it's gonna be an inevitability. You know, the more that you continue to just work here, enjoy yourself, and be on the platform, I'm gonna tell you that people are just gonna gravitate to you. You know, Sean Cannell always says your vibe attracts your tribe. I've heard quite a few other people, you know, reverberate that same type of analogy, and I would have to agree, because the one thing that I've just been able to do is just be myself and have fun. This is stuff that I love doing, and you know, like I said, my vibe is attracting my tribe, and that's why I'm always just so grateful of having all you camera junkies here to talk tech and just hang out. Says, did Peter bring any snacks tonight? I don't know. I haven't seen Peter here. Ex-Marine. So I'm thinking about getting a Blackmagic Design A10 Mini live production switcher to connect to Sony A6600 to Sony ZV-1 and an iPad to my computer to spruce up my Zoom calls. Well, that's the easiest way to do it. You know, I have quite a bit of a production going on. Like, I'm kind of proud with what I was able to do, but the A10 is going to be the easiest way to get it on there. Now, I'm not sure, because I haven't owned an A10 myself, how you would connect the iPad to it. You might still need to get the iPad adapter that, you know, it's going to split it into a power and an HDMI, so that then you can just connect it as another external source. That I will guarantee you would work, you know, because it's just going to see it as another feed, and that will allow you to do the iPad and both of your cameras. So yeah, and honestly, the A10 allows you to actually broadcast right from it, so you can do live streams right from the A10 Mini. I believe you don't need even any other software. You just, you know, whichever platform you desire to utilize. Me, this is what I got going on here. Let me see if I could break this down real quick. I have the new M1 Mac Mini, right? That I have audios being split out for audio in and out. So I have the audio going to my PreSonus speakers, so they're blasting through the speakers. I now have my microphone connected to my DBX286S, which is an all-in-one channel controller, compressor, noise gate, de-esser, the whole thing. Love this piece of kit. So my microphone gets connected here. I have the output from here going into my mixer into channel 1, which allows me to control my microphone. Here go, so we can hear me fading in and out. In my second slot here, I have my iPad, which is where I have all of my touch buttons. So that's going into there, which is also going, all of this that's coming through the mixer is being pumped directly out to you in the microphone into the Mac M1. I also have my iPad here connected directly to the Mac M1, which allows it to see it natively through eCam as a camera, as a display, as everything that I needed to do. So that's also very convenient, being the fact that eCam is native to Mac computers, and so is the iPad being an Apple product. It just communicates natively through the entire system. Now, the other issue that I was having was I wasn't able to like mix all of the audio, like the audio that I'm listening to, compared to what you guys are hearing, and then actually be hearing what like let's say I was doing a Zoom call or anything like that. So I couldn't have the sound coming out of the speakers, because then the microphone would pick it up and it would cause like this loop. It's called slapback. So I had to have my headphones in to listen to it, but I didn't have the ability to actually listen to my microphone, my sound effects, what was going on. So all of this being the same for my live stream, what I ended up doing was now connecting the secondary out from the mixer, which is the same thing that you guys are hearing, and I put that into the secondary auxiliary. The second auxiliary into the same PreSonus speaker. So now whatever sound that I'm creating from here is also being pumped out from my speakers, which necessarily would not be good, right? Having everything mixed right there, computers, microphones, everything, and including I have a Windows computer over here, so to get the audio and the sounds from this computer all mixed in, I also have that plugged into the mixer channel 3. So iPad, microphone, and Windows computer all as separate channels here, all mixed in through the mixer, being pumped out to the speakers and mixed in with the speakers output from the Mac M1 itself. So all that sound is now coming out of these speakers, but I didn't want to create the slapback. So the final piece is just connecting my headphones to the auxiliary out here, which allows me to listen to myself, listen to sound effects, listen to the computer, listen to Zoom calls, listen to everything. And I only have to wear one headset. So I have 3 computers, 2 iPads, and my microphone setup, not including my cameras, all connected to this one audio mixer. It's like the Golden Glades interchange here in Miami. Okay, so it says, oh my goodness, there's so many updates. It will take me a bit to figure out which one for the 80D and which one's for the 90D. It's confusing having 2 with the similar names. Be careful, yeah, but you got that. Excuse me. Man, I got like a dryness in the back of my throat. I'm drinking water and it's not doing anything. Okay, let's get back to it. It says you're correct on the OS says the Nikon lens is a 70mm and have vibration control. Yeah, anything lower 70mm, no stabilization because not needed because it has built into the camera. Okay, that's cool. 3 words, 1 comment, and it's right back. And we press on. Okay, it says the Tamron is exceptional to this rule, 24-70 and the 70-200 f2.8. But I believe the Tamrons are also not vibration reduction, unless we're talking about APS-C, which I can just tell you right at the bat, not really too familiar with the wording on them. But the Tamrons, I believe, do not have image stabilization, which is also one of the benefits. Like a lot of people, a lot of Sony photographers, a lot of Sony wedding photographers, their secret weapon is the Tamron 24-70 2.8. It's not vibration reduction, but guess what? All of these full frame cameras that people are using with them, like the A7 III, have steady shot inside. So the image stabilization is sensor based, which is good enough for their photography. I'm trying to induce it almost a little bit right now to see if I can just clear it out. Excuse me. I will tell you to buy me a coffee, but I heard that that's not the greatest thing when it comes to live streaming. A la Peter Gregg. Says, I opted for the Tamron 17-70 f2.8 versus the Sony 16-55, which is 95% of the Sony. I loved it so much. I got the 11-20 f2.8 and look forward to the Tamron 18-300 APS-C all this fall. And these are all APS-C. Because you see the APS-C line, the glass being a little bit smaller, they have more room for the image stabilization, or the vibration control, I believe is how they name it. So, but the full frame ones, the trio that came out for Tamron, and if I am correct, I believe it's the 17-28, the 24-70, and the 70-180 millimeters, which is just shy of 200. All 3 of those from Tamron are not vibration reduction or vibrationally controlled. Which the conversation here is like, that's not the end of the world, especially these cameras that have steady shot built in. You can go definitely without having it in the lens. I have the ZV-1 as a C cam, and I like it. The ZV-C. Oh, that sounded like Tom. Okay. Hi, Scott. No Peter, and it's he's at his brother's tonight. Slide. Just update with the latest firmware on each camera. It should update everything from the previous firmware updates with lens firmware corrections that you have to do those extra. Also in Tamron 17 to 70, I believe their new 100 to 500. I forget exactly what the new lens is. I believe the new one is the 18 to 300. I think somebody had mentioned it before. I believe that's the latest one. Okay. Live streams may not viewing it while live, but more watch it the next day after. Okay. I love it, and your image quality is fantastic. Love my ATEMs. Yes, adapter for the HDMI. Okay, you see? So we're confirming that. It says your vibe does attract your tribe. I borrowed your line about time being a commodity tonight on my live play-by-play of the fights. Oh, that's super cool, man. You know what? I do this, right? And that's why I said, like, I appreciate you guys. I've missed so much UFC. Like, that's like my guilty pleasure. I'm Puerto Rican. I grew up with boxing and all that stuff. That's just part of it. And, you know, I grew up with that stuff. And that's like my guilty pleasure. And I would ask you who won, but I'm going to watch it maybe tomorrow. So I'll see. Hopefully Dillashaw did his thing, because I just like the way he fights. Says the Tamron for the Nikon full frame. Okay, so are those image stabilized for the Nikon? Let me know. The new Tamron is the 150 to 500. Just checked to make sure. Okay, cool. Thanks. Oh, that didn't come up. There you go. That's what I just said. Okay, and that's the end of that. All right, let me get back to this and let me see if we can get back to some menus here. Boop. All right. We left it in the memory and we did that. Focus mode. Oh, this is good stuff. Okay. Autofocus continuous. Obviously, that's just basically what it stands for. You can do continuous autofocus. It is going to constantly be tracking. If you're doing face autofocus, is going to have that. You have all the different options. Automatic autofocus, it will focus, but once the shutter is half pressed, it will stop. Single shutter, it will just focus and then allow you to shoot. Manual focus, most people don't even realize that these digital cameras still have this. So yes, all cameras will still have the ability to manual focus. One thing that I like about manual focus is that as soon as you select it, okay, let me go to it, this thing pops up called focus. Oh, maybe not on this one right now. Focus peaking. Let me see if we can see it. Oh, let's not worry about that now. Well, focus peaking, I also have another video about that. Basically, it highlights everything that's in focus when you're shooting manually with an outline, digital outline, your choice of color, whether it be white, yellow, red, or blue. These are all available through the Sony system. Okay. Dynamic manual focus. This is an option that I like myself. I use it a lot, which it allows you to autofocus normally using like the half press of the shutter, but it still gives you all of the features of the manual focus, being the focus peaking, what you're seeing in shot that's in focus will also be there, and you can manually override. So if you want to adjust with the focus. All you do is turn the focus ring and you're right into manual the same way. So DMF is dynamic manual focus, and something that I really enjoy in the Sony cameras. Okay, focus area. Well, I have it there as center right now, but normally I have it on wide, meaning that it's gonna use the widest aspect of this section here to track whatever it is that you have in focus. And like you said, if you're doing face tracking, or face recognition autofocus, you're giving it the widest angle. This zone is not as wide, even though it looks through the diagram that it's more, it's actually less. It's kind of like an enlarged center point, but it's something that most people don't pay attention to or don't use. If you're doing a shot like mine right now, this is a very suitable autofocus mode, because it's going to keep everything here. Once you fall out of it, that's when you kind of like lose the focusing. But with that, oh, I hit the wrong button. Let's not go into white balance now. But you have a variety of different center, obviously center. Flexible spot. This allows you to move the focus point anywhere you want, allowing you to highlight it, and whatever you desire, that's where, when you press the half shutter, that's where it will utilize the focusing aspect. Okay, this is an expandable spot. This is basically the same exact thing, but it allows you to adjust the size of the same spot that you just seen. So even though you're here, you actually are able to change like the tracking that it comes with it. See, select it. Oh, we're getting into different menus, so let's not do that. Okay, and tracking. This is why is it not giving me the ability? I don't remember right now why it's not doing that. But tracking is also very cool. It gives you a center spot, which is something that, I could honestly tell you is probably one of the more underutilized focusing systems, and could probably be one of the best. Sony has impeccable tracking, meaning, especially on these newer cameras, if you half press the shutter to select the focus and it's somebody's face, it will literally track that person's face. They can turn around, they can start moving away closer to you, and this camera is going to be able to determine the depth of field to get you the sharpest image possible. With this feature, you have a center focus point, so you can just put the center focus point on anything pretty much, and when you half press the shutter, it's going to create like a locking mechanism on them directly, and just follow them all throughout the frame, allowing you to just snap pictures away no matter where you're at. The fact that it's in the center will allow you to reset after excuse me. It will allow you to reset after every shot, and like after every time you release the half press shutter. But it's super convenient, and the fact that it will track anything and allow you to focus and recompose, it's the new wave, the modern version of focus recompose, which is also something that a lot of people neglect. AF illuminator, as you can see, turn that off. Let's see if I can show you. I have a piece of tape covering it, but right here next to this Sony sign, there's a little white button. A little clear light, usually shoots out orange. At night it helps with focusing, but it's so distracting. I can't even tell you, it's so distracting. When shooting portraits at night, the last thing you want is an orange light to hit somebody's face and have them making this face before you press the shutter. So even though it helps with autofocusing because it allows the camera to dial in the range correctly, I'd rather go 100% manual and do it myself before I allow the AF illuminator to just mess up the shot. Face and eye autofocus set. Autofocus with shutter. Now I do have this set up, but I also do back button focusing. Now this is why I really like the Sony cameras, because I'm used to back button focusing. It allows you to snap images faster because you have two dedicated buttons, one for the shutter, one for the focusing. So I can hold my camera and just keep pressing on the back button with my thumb and continue to hold that tracking that we were just talking about all throughout the frame, and just keep snapping away with my finger, because the back button is just keeping the focus locked while my index finger is just clicking away on the shutter. But not every time I have the ability to hit the back button. So if I do just want to catch a different, shot, I don't remove the functionality of the autofocus with the shutter. I still have that there, in addition to back button focusing, which is, once again, the best of both worlds. You don't have to compromise, and I have them in both slots. And for, if you didn't know, focus is probably the most important thing when it comes to photography. Okay, let me shut that off real quick, because I can't even see what's behind it. Oh, pre-autofocus. Yeah. That's something that it's available on some of the lenses, not all of them. If it's on there, I do turn it off. I think it's one of the bigger waste of battery on Sony cameras, and it really doesn't have that much that much benefit. Especially because the autofocus on these cameras are so good that you don't need to have it pre-autofocus. It's gonna nail it every single time. Wow, I don't think I'm gonna get through all of these settings. I'm just being honest, because we haven't even removed the first category. I think I might just do the first category and leave something up for another day, because I still have like half of the pages. I'm on page 6 of 11 on the first tab. But this is why some people think that they can get lost in Sony cameras. I love this stuff, man. Like, give me more menus. I know I'm the oddball out, right? That's me, right? I'm the one who likes the flip up screen over the flip out screens, and I love the Sony menus. It gives you full customization over the camera. So once I've set these things once, I barely come into these menus ever again. So people are always like, oh, I'm always going to... I'm like, no, man. I have my menus already set up on my dial in memory. So it's just click and select, and my camera is doing exactly what I want it to do. That's why I love these Sony cameras. And let's just... I'm going to add this, my 2 cents right here, okay? Everybody's like, oh, the ZV-1 camera. People love it. I get it. Now the new ZV-E10, the new A7C, right? They're like, it has this button on the top dedicated for recording. And I'm going to say it right now, that irritates me, okay? It irritates me for one huge reason, right? You see this button right here? It's called the shutter button. It's the biggest button on the top of the camera, right on front. That's my record button. Yeah. So whenever I have this set to record video, there's a feature within the settings here on my A6100 that says record with shutter, and I'm like, yes. So when I have it in movie mode, I hit that button, which is the closest one to me, the one that would normally take the picture, and this camera will go boop and start recording. So for all the people that complain that this button back here is dumb, I also can tell you that, you know what? If I was self-recording and I'm holding my camera right here, that button is perfectly placed where my index would be while I hold the camera in a selfie mode if I wanted to record video. So I was talking to Doc Rock about this the other day. I was like, I remember in 1996, 1997, when Sony came out with the PlayStation game console. And the funniest thing about that console was the controller. and everybody was like, look at this weird controller with these two things sticking out of it, blah blah blah. Every controller on the market now is a direct descendant of that original PlayStation controller. Everything that's ergonomical that fits in your hands right now is based around the PlayStation controller. So when it comes to ergonomics, I trust Sony, and that's why I see so much functionality in these cameras. And when I hear people complaining about it, I'm like, you obviously do not own this camera, because if you did, you most likely wouldn't be complaining about it. Why do I need another big button that says record when the one main big button on my camera already does the recording, right? So I digress. There you go, my 2 cents. Okay. Display continuous autofocus area. That has to do with the settings. I have that on so that while I'm checking it, autofocus micro adjustment, I haven't had the need to do that at all. That's something that you can mess with if you're dealing with like manual lenses and you're trying to micro adjust focusing, but not necessary. Exposure compensation. Now this is just standard things that you can find directly in the menu. So if I were to hit the menu out right here, as you can see down towards the bottom where it says like F4, then you have this little plus minus, like just right under where my face is, so to speak. So directly under me, this like flashing little like 00, that's the exposure compensation, or basically letting you know if your image is exposed correctly. As you can see, this one is not, because it's completely black, but that's exactly what that entire menu case is about. Exposure compensation, ISO auto. ISO is the sensitivity of like your sensor itself towards light. So I'm gonna select this because this is one of the cool things. Yeah, I have it on automatic, but what I do have is the ability to set the parameters. So whenever, and no matter what form of mode that I'm using my camera, whenever I'm using auto, I have it set up that the what we're trying to shoot for is ISO 100, right? That's always the cleanest image. But I also have it maxed out at 6400, meaning that is the highest that I want the camera to go. I do not want it to go anything past that. If it goes past that, then I think we're dealing with too much noise for my liking. You know, to each his own. These cameras do great even at higher ISOs, but preferably for me, that's where I keep it. And you could adjust it, you see, up or down, and that's where I have mine. And once I have it set, no matter which camera option that I select, whether it's manual, shutter priority, aperture priority, it doesn't matter. Whenever I select auto ISO, it will never deviate from those like parameters. And then also you have the option to just go and, you know, select whichever ISO is necessary for you at that moment. But with auto, there's kind of like a cheat code with that aspect, because I always know that it's going to fall within my 100 to 6400, so I really don't have to worry. Okay, metering mode. Most people don't know what metering mode is. This is how your camera evaluates light. So these three options are basically, if you could imagine what the entirety of the sensor is itself. If you have it in spot, meaning the center spot, the camera is going to expose the entire image for whatever is at that center spot. So if that center spot is very dark, then it's going to expose and bring up, you know, like highlights, increase the ISO, even if the skies around it are blown out, for the simple reason that it is exposing for whatever's in the center. So it can be a bright day outside, but if somebody's wearing a dark shirt and you put them right in the center, then it's going to bring all the exposures down as if they were at night, because you have it set to the single spot. Now, some people prefer this because they use that single spot and they expose for the person's face when it comes to portrait photography. I don't do mine that way because, I like to adjust my my settings so that I can get the exposure correctly in camera, allowing me to maximize my raw files in post. But like I said, to each his own. Center is giving you the spot in the center plus a little bit more of what's around there. This, I would say, it will be a little bit more ideal for portraits, but still what I use is multi, which is the entirety of the sensor itself to expose for the shot correctly. These meter modes are not only to give the camera the ability of like what to recognize, but also to be based around your shooting preferences. Okay. Phase priority and multimetering, and I have it as on. So you see, like, I don't need to have the spot metering or the center metering, because the next option is to have phase priority as my exposure. So for portrait photographies, I have this, and you see the camera does that work for me. Exposure steps, this gives you the ability to expose in thirds or half stops. So if I were to put half stops here, to give you an example, I go from f4 at the bottom here. Let me put my face over that. The f4 that we're seeing here, right? The next step as I bring it up will be f4.5, f5, and you're gonna be doing half steps in the exposure. Now, if I do this, it will now have smaller increments between them, giving you more detailed control. So instead of 5.6, 6.3 and 7.1, I believe 7.1 wasn't available because it's not going to jump into those incremental third steps. So that's what the exposure steps are. And let me turn this stuff off because I don't see. Oh, auto exposure with shutter. So yeah, that's basically the metering you want to expose. So when I do the half press on the shutter, or in my case as well, the back button focusing, it will actually automatically do the exposure for that. Oh wow, look at this. I don't think I'm gonna get into the flash right now, because then we're gonna be dealing with bouncing flashes and everything like that. That would just be another hour conversation on flash. Wow, I think I'm gonna have to make a video about this, because I am so shocked that there's so much information. There's so much that you can do in these cameras. Look, soft skin effect going bottom up. Picture effects. This is something that I have turned off right now because I have the camera basically set to standard. But if you wanted like a beauty mode, skin softening mode, all that stuff, all of that's available in picture effects. Creative style, I have it set to portrait. This DRO auto HDR D range optimizer, that's dynamic range. So the optimizer, how do I have it set? Level 2. Okay, that's good. That's about like halfway, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, just a shade under. That has to do with the dynamic range, how much dynamic range is being pulled into every image that you take or video. I have it set to a little bit more than normal, but not too extreme where it's going to start looking fake on all the images that I take. Priority set auto white balance. I have it set to white. As you can see, these are options that most people don't know. This is probably one of the secrets in the rough, right? It says standard. We're gonna this is how it comes, right? Automatic white balance standard. And you see AWB. I'm gonna move my face towards it right here. So right there. Boom, 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 boom. Auto white balance. It says B2 M2. I'm gonna let you know exactly what that is, because the Sony cameras tend to lean a little bit towards the greens, so they need help with like the blues and the magentas. Actually, they handle blues very well, but it really does need a kick into the magentas because of how heavily they kick towards the greens. Okay. So what I did here was I changed this not from ambience but to white, so that the automatic white balance that it's looking for is always looking for pure white. And if you can find pure white and it adjusts the colors to it, it's already doing an amazing job for the auto white balance. Now, right here, it gives you the ability to change all of the different types of of white balance here. See, flash white balance, underwater white balance, your Kelvin scale that gives you the ability, because as you can see, there's an arrow to the right of the orange K, meaning if I were to select towards the right, now I get this drop menu which allows me to adjust the Kelvin scale right there on the fly. But what most people fail to see is that there's still another arrow to the right of the 56K, meaning if you were to hit again towards the right, you will fall into this category, which is my favorite. I'm going to move my face again here. As you can see, this is the color scale on the bottom right hand corner. So we'll be shooting, if I were to select this auto white balance feature at 56K, so, not auto, right? I'm selecting the Kelvin. So if I were to select the Kelvin scale at 5600K, I still have the ability to manipulate how the colors are going to be rendered, and I am moving away from the greens and more towards the magentas. See, so dropping 2 magenta, 1 blue, and then I hit enter to select it. And now, as you can see, my new white balance, I'm going to put my face back to it, boop, right here, says 56K, B1, M2, blue 1, magenta 2, and this is basically the image that you'd be seeing coming out of here. That little trick with the auto white balance seeking white with the magenta kick, and what did I mention before? Well, yeah, but basically those tricks right there, those are gonna really help you out with the colors on the camera straight out of camera. Okay, what else we got here? Oh, went the wrong way. Flash. Focus magnifier. Okay, this is for focus assist for manual focus. Once you select manual focus, and this is also very good for manual lenses. To give you an example, this is a vintage 28mm SLR lens on a Photosay adapter that allows me to put it onto a Sony camera. Once I have this set up on these cameras, it is completely manual, and what you have is a focus magnifier allowing me to click a button. Once I do that, it will zoom in onto it, allowing me to precisely get the focus by zooming in like 4 times on whatever prime lens or vintage lens that you might be using. Once you acquire it and you press the shutter or the back button focus, it will drop you back out and allowing you to take the picture correctly and in perfect focus. The spot underneath it is the limit of the time for the focus magnifier. Because I do a lot of manual focusing shooter, I have unlimited time for that. The initial focus magnification, you have ability to change it from 1 to 5.9. I have it at 1, but if I click it twice, I go to that 5.9, click it again, and go back to the standard. Autofocus and focus magnifier, yeah, if it's available, but manual focus assist, that's on, and peaking settings, this is what I was saying. Display levels on, peaking color is yellow. So whenever I do my manual focus or my dynamic manual focus, that's what I'll be looking at for my focus peaking colors. I also made a video on that as well about why I love mirrorless cameras, and focus peaking is probably the biggest thing. Face registration, I made a YouTube short about this as well. this is one of the hidden secrets when it comes to the autofocus with the Sony cameras, is face registration, like registered face priority. So the example that I gave is like, let's say you were at a wedding. You can take the bride and the groom and maybe the parents that are the most important people to be photographed on a wedding day, and kind of register a mug shot that recognizes facial features, not so much like the colors or anything, but facial features, kind of like a Facebook AI, right? And once that's programmed into the camera, it will actively find that face in a crowd. So let's say you were doing a wedding reception and you're trying to focus in on the bride and she's across the room. The camera already recognizes her as priority number one, as the person that we want to be photographed the most. So it will actually like avoid focusing on other people and just focus on the bride or the groom in whichever order you put or set them to priority. So obviously, if it's a wedding, I would say the bride is priority number one, groom number two, and then you can set the rest, accordingly. But it's such an amazing feature. The other thing that it does is that it registers your face. So I've been able to register my own face in my Sony A6100, and now say I'm vlogging, the camera recognizes me. Even if it recognizes another face, it will not try to focus on that face at all, because it recognizes me as like priority number one, as the owner. Smile shutter is exactly what you think it is. So you don't even have to register your face to have this feature on, but if you wanted to take selfies with it, you can just have like a regular standard face, and as soon as you hit the smile, the camera will recognize the smile and actively press the shutter and take the shot for you, so that it captures you in the best smile possible. It's pretty interesting, but it goes to show you just another feature that these cameras have. And self-portrait timer, that is just basically the same as a timer. Another thing that this has is interval shooting, which is time-lapse shooting. So you can do full day time lapses in like 6K, because this is a 6K image sensor. It's just the potential in this camera is limitless. And this will conclude the settings for the camera, and not even video, because the second tab is when we start getting into video, codecs, so on and so forth. I'm gonna check back with the tab, because I think I'm gonna be wrapping this up right here. Let me see if you guys have any other questions about this stuff. He says, hey, cool, I won't spoil it for you. Art Carrasco says this. I think he's talking about the fights. Okay, yeah. Okay. Coffee Talking Tech. TJ, Corey, God can't tell you. UFC. No. Oh, man. And Dr. Elo saying, what's up? Dímelo, Luis. What's up, Dr. Elo, man? Gotta tell you, I'm excited for what's coming, and I can't wait to be on that live stream with you. That's gonna be super cool. So many things. Another good bit of information. It's this Wednesday. It's been postponed a little bit because of business trips, but Alicia Way the third, and his content creation ecosystem channel host a weekly live stream type of interview called Creators on the Come Up, and I am lucky enough to have been asked to join on there, and I feel honored to be able to be considered a creator on the come up. That it means a lot to me. I have a lot of fun doing this. Like I was saying before, I had a great week because of what I've been able to learn and what I've been able to just accomplish with Doc Rock, and just starting to get my feet wet with the things that are coming. For those of you who don't know, I'm doing my best and I'm trying my hardest. And I'm not saying I'm trying my hardest, but I'm already putting things into play, things into position for me to be at the leap into, not the leap into live stream. That's a that's another thing. Let me mention it now that I said it. Leap into Livestream is available. I'll probably be leaving a link in the description here. It is a $20 3-day web-based conference. If you've ever thought at all about doing live streaming, check it out, because it's the information that you've been missing. So it's really cool. On top of that, there's a People of Video conference in October. I believe that's the 8th, 9th, and 10th. And that's the one that I said that I'm really working hard, and I know that I'm gonna get there with the help of everyone and Doc Rock. I'm going to be in Albany in October for this conference. I'm super excited. Like I can't stop like smiling about this, because I'm going to be able to meet so many people that I've already made friendships and relationships with online, but to be able to solidify it in person is gonna be out of this world. So I'm super excited. I really mean, like, there's so many people that are gonna be there that I almost feel like this People of Video conference was catered for me. Like, it was all the people that I needed to meet. So I'm more than excited. I can't even, I'm like out of my skin. And I'm super excited to see what happens, because we just passed the halfway mark. And like I said, next week we're going to be celebrating 100 uploads to the channel, live streams, and, you know, like video on demand content, shorts, everything. But just, we've reached 100 pieces of content on the channel, which is something that I'm very proud of. Roberto Blake is always saying, make 100 crappy videos. I try to do the best that I can, but it still falls into that category that if they are crappy, so be it. But I've had so much fun doing it. I can't wait to see where we're gonna be in another 6 months. You know, like when it comes to December, where we're gonna be with this channel. I'm just super stoked, super excited, because we're like I said, we're just creeping at 700 camera junkie crew, and I can't wait to see where we end up in a year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, because I'm not going anywhere. I found my home. I'm super happy, and that's something that gets underrated a lot, you know, happiness. And to give you an example, I was actually getting known to be very popular on the social media platform Clubhouse, and I take nothing away from Clubhouse. Last week I did like a multicast, but I didn't realize that being an audio platform, it needs to be catered towards audio. So if my show were to be more like a podcast where it's audio, you know, where it's something that it's not visually like dependent, then it would be a shoo-in for Clubhouse. But seeming that I felt like I wasn't able to maximize the learning experience with the subject that I had in mind last week, Canva, because I was trying to like cater to two audiences, really didn't feel right with me. So I didn't do the Clubhouse thing, but that I digress. That's not why I really bring that up. The reason why I brought it up was because Clubhouse, being an amazing application itself, audio based, I was spending a lot of time at the beginning of the year there and helping a lot of people, but the audience that I was gaining there was of fellow content creators, which is cool. But you know, to be realistic, fellow content creators is not the audience that we're building here, is not the community that we're building here. Not that they're not part of it, but you know, like, content creators are pretty much well versed, and here in the Camera Junkie crew I try to bring as much value as possible. So even if someone is just beginning, you know, and is just starting to learn, I want them to feel safe here to be able to ask any questions, because I'm happy to help. So I came to the realization that I couldn't be in both places, so I knowing that this is the platform that I prefer, you know, and I take nothing away from Clubhouse, but Clubhouse is not where I wanted to build the Camera Junkie crew, because it's hard to build something about cameras, which is what my passion about, on an audio platform, right? With video, it's still part of the camera with video and photography and the direction of photography in video, because that's where people forget. You know, like, there's some directors that are directors of photography because each shot in a movie is like a still frame, and it needs to be respected that way, or, you know, it needs to be treated that way. Like, every single shot is a standalone piece of art. So with that being said, let's get back to the chat. Okay, so we're just saying goodbye, saying, yep, great job, Lewis, good night. What's the tickets for the Albany thing? I don't know. Look, I have a buy me a coffee, right? And I just got this basic chart today, and that's why I guess I'm bringing it up, which just has all the expenses that are going to be acquired to make this trip. So I just need to put the numbers together. But I literally just got like this PDF today to see, like, you know, like rental for a car, for hotel, so on and so forth. Arbitrarily, like just a number that I threw out there, and that's why I also bring it up. It was on Buy Me a Coffee. I set up a goal for $3,000, and I believe $3,000 should cover that more than enough. But I think that's going to be the budget of what it's going to cost for the tickets to get there, for rentals, food, hotel, everything that's going to be required for the entire trip. My biggest thing is to orchestrate everything, because I'm going to make it there no matter what. I just need to figure out how I'm going to do it with my baby boy Aiden, and to see if it'll be necessary for me to bring him with me. Because even if that is a thing and I need to bring him with me, like I said, it's what's going to happen. I'm not going to miss this this conference. I'm not going to miss it. And the reason why I'm saying it to you guys right now is because it's almost like I have to say it to myself. I'm not going to miss it. Now, for those of you who were here last week, and those of you who caught the replay, also heard me talk about a bit of a somber subject. And the reason why I bring this up again is not to get into that same conversation, but it is to reiterate why I'm telling you that I'm gonna make it to this event. Because just last week I was telling you, and that the slogan or the message that was coming out of my mouth was, don't take time for granted. Right? Don't take time for granted. It was something that hit me, and a lot of people do that they wait for, oh, I'll do that next time, and they don't really know if there is a next time. And I said that because that's exactly how I felt, and just trying to express my appreciation for every single person here and spending your time with me. Like I always say, your most precious commodity. And come Monday, got news that a fellow camera junkie, a member of Heather and Tom's, or Heather's Friday Huddle Up, and a member of the Let's Get Live community, Jake Galvin, passed away due to COVID complications and a heart attack. And I said what I said last Saturday for completely different reasons. And then it didn't even take but 48 hours for it to just hit me in the face of how precious the time that we have here is, how things are limited, and that we take time for granted. Like we can just, oh, I'll get to it next time, when we don't know if there will be a next time. So in that spirit, because the message that I've been trying to put across to you guys today and last week is that take advantage of every day. It's the most precious thing that we have. Take advantage of the time that we have and make the most of every little bit that you can. Don't be like a standby of your own life, right? Like, don't stand on the sidelines of your own life. Do it, whatever it is, you know. Let's say whatever it is that you're passionate about, seek it out, find it, do it. Spend your time doing the things that make you happy, because that's what Jake did. You know, Jake was a school teacher and he found the online community, and within a very short time that we were able to partake and experience the energy that was Jake, he left an impact on a lot of us. And the fact that he's gone, he will be missed. But if it leads you to know anything, is to take advantage of every day. Don't leave anything on the table, right? Like, don't leave money on the table, how they say, and don't take time for granted. So rest in peace, Jake. You'll be missed. And with that being said, guys, like I said, it's not negative. It is just the realization of we have to make the most of our everyday. And that's why, once again, I thank you for spending your time here with me. Your most precious commodity. It means the world to me, because I'm already at the place where I want to be. I'm already on the platform where I want to be. I'm on YouTube doing the thing that I love, and I appreciate every single one of you for allowing me to do that. So thank you. And with that, as always, I will leave you guys. Have a great night. Stay safe. Take care of each other. And I will see you all next week, because we're doing it all over again. 10:55 p.m. Eastern Time, right here. I don't know if I'm gonna get back into some more menus, because I was blown away. I was like, oh, I know this camera. I'm just gonna go through the menus and wing it. And going through it, man, that overwhelmed me, because wow, you know, like when I'm just running through them, I can run through these menus, but having to explain every little detail of what I changed and why I changed it. Oh, we're running on 2 hours, so that goes to show you. We did tab 1, and we'll see if I go, and maybe that's what I'll name it, live stream tab 2 of the A6100 settings. And you guys will see what we'll get into next week. But like as always, have a great night. We'll see you all next week. I appreciate every single one of you, and yeah, stay safe. We'll see you next week. Have a great night. Do you love your camera but wish some of the buttons were easier to get to? This is how I fix the situation. I get out my trusty hot glue gun and apply a small amount of glue on the desired button. It makes any button easier to click. Also, it helps identify buttons without having to look. It's non-destructive and protects the text from wear and tear. Mr. Camera Junkie's tip of the day.